birth of Jesus in 1 minute. One day a woman named Mary got visited by an angel that was like, "Yo, you're birthing the Son of God," and left. Mary and her husband Joseph left to Bethlehem to give birth to God's Son.
They were not given a place to stay, and instead went to a barn.
While they were at the barn, a little distance away, 3 shepherds were visited by the angel, and they were told, "Yo, Son of God is being born under that star. Go give him gifts." And so the shepherds went and gave Mary and Joseph a bunch of stuff. Story of the first miracle of Jesus. In the small town of Cana, wedding was being held. And the wedding wine ran out. "Oh no," said Mary. Then Jesus was, "My time has not yet come," and did nothing. Mary instructed the disciples to do whatever Jesus told them to do. Jesus told the servants to fill 6 pots with water and take them to the hosts. But when liquid was poured out of the pots, it wasn't water, it was wine. "Whoa," said everyone. This was the first miracle of Jesus.
How Jesus walked on water. Jesus sent his disciples across the Sea of Galilee. In the middle of sailing, the crew was confronted by a storm. They were terrified. Then they saw a figure on the water. Most of them thought it was a ghost. Then Peter said, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you." And Jesus said, "Okay." Peter began walking on water. But as soon as Peter looked away from Jesus, he began to sink. Peter asked Jesus for help, and they both rise back onto the ship. Jesus feeding 5,000 people. Jesus was trying to find peace on top of a mountain and get away from people who are constantly asking for help. His followers still followed him up the mountain, and Jesus realized these people were starving physically and spiritually. One boy in the crowd had a basket that had 2 fish and 5 bread. The boy gave the basket to Jesus, and Jesus said, "Beep boop." And the bread and fish multiplied until it could feed 5,000 people. Resurrection of Lazarus. Lazarus was a good friend of Jesus. Lazarus's 2 sisters informed Jesus about the fact that Lazarus had fallen ill. Jesus immediately traveled to Bethany to see Lazarus. Disciples were hesitant because last time in Bethany, Jesus got stoned. When they got to Bethany, they found out that Lazarus had been in a tomb for 4 days. Jesus reassured the sisters that Jesus can save him. Jesus yelled, "Get out," and Lazarus came out in grave clothing. Jesus said, "Take your clothes off," and Lazarus was completely healed from his illness. Jesus curing a blind man. When Jesus was leaving, a man yelled from the crowd. He yelled, "Help me, please." The crowd tried to silence him, but he kept yelling louder and louder. Jesus said, "Get over here," and the man came. The man got on one knee in front of Jesus, and Jesus said, "What do you want?" He asked to see Jesus, and Jesus says, "Okay." The man gained back his sight, and he began to follow Jesus. Jesus cleansing in palace. Jesus was going to a temple with his disciples. Jesus went in alone. Inside the temple, there were merchants and other sellers. Jesus became furious. He started to drive out all the people in the temple. After that, he probably flipped some tables and probably almost kicked a dog until he realized how cute it was. Jesus then blessed the temple and left.
How Jesus got sentenced. In the city of Jerusalem, Jesus was brought into court for blasphemy against God. The judge of this case was Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate didn't think Jesus was guilty of anything, and even Jewish religious leaders called for his release. But Pontius was more interested in his position than the righteous thing to do. Pontius found Jesus guilty for the blasphemy of God. Jesus' sentence was to be crucified. Tomorrow I will tell you how that went. Jesus' crucifixion. Jesus was sentenced guilty of blasphemy of God, and such was crucified. Jesus carried the cross across town to the crucifixion site. At the site there were already 2 other men. Jesus was put on the cross, and 2 nails were put on each of his wrists. There was also a thorn crown on his head to make fun of the King of the Jews thing. There was plenty of people making fun of and also supporting Jesus. Jesus died after 9 hours and was buried in a cave. Resurrection of Jesus. Jesus had been dead for 3 days. 2 maidens went to visit Jesus' grave, which was in a cave behind a rock. But when they got to the grave, the rock had been rolled away. An angel was there saying, "Yo, Jesus is alive," bye, and left. The women went inside and Jesus wasn't there anymore. The women went to town screaming, "Jesus is alive," and everyone celebrated, while Jesus smiled next to God.